Hi, everyone. I'm Cedar Milazzo from Netgear, and I want to thank CEA for providing this forum for us to talk to you about our smart network. The Netgear Smart Network was announced just a couple of days ago at our press conference here at CES. Basically what we're doing is we're providing a way for third-party developers to write applications on all of Netgear's products. This includes our set-top boxes, our network-attached storage devices, our routers, DSL gateways, pretty much everything else. We're initially rolling it out to the ReadyNAS project and our WNR 3500 router Wi-Fi product. So the smart network is essentially an evolution of the networking device. So we look at a Netgear router, and this is a example of what a Netgear router really looked like last year. It's a feature phone, or it's a feature network device. It comes as a device with everything built in, and if you want to change things, you either get a firmware upgrade or you go buy a new device. What we're looking at next year is really a smart networking device. This includes all of our routers, of course, but our other connected TV devices as well. You saw just now at our last presenter mentioned the Neo TV. That's one of the products this will be run on eventually as well. The idea really is to take this home network and make it customizable for the end user, so they can really provide whatever sort of applications or customizable features that they want on their home network. So what we're looking at creating is a network ecosystem, and really that's about taking all the devices within the home, whether it's a television or a home control device or a router or a set-top box or your network storage or your PC, and integrating them together in such a way that they can all interact with each other. And we can write applications that can actually have components running on all these things and work together to actually provide additional value beyond what the individual devices alone could ever hope to provide. The smart network is essentially a combination of several different pieces. There is what we call the control point. This is the piece that's embedded within the device in the home, and this provides an application platform for your applications. We also have a cloud server that contains our app store, as well as a repository of account information and as well a remote access API. And then, of course, there's user interfaces, and these user interfaces can be either local or remote. They could be a UI on the television, they could be a UI on an iPhone or Android device, or they could be a web browser application. The thing that ties all these together is essentially the Netgear Smart Network communication language, something we call Fluid Control Markup Language. And essentially it's an XML language that enables us to provide simple APIs that you can use to access all the capabilities of the device, but also provides APIs for application developers to expose their functionality as well. So if someone builds an application to, let's say, control a Z-Wave or Zigbee Lite, they could actually expose that so other application developers could build that into their application as well. So you build out the basic application on an iPhone to control your light, and then maybe somebody else wants to create an application on the television to actually provide access to that home control functionality as well. They can just access that other application and make use of those APIs. The basic architecture is really based around some open standards. It's a Linux-based architecture with a Java VM and OSGI platform on top of that. And essentially what we have is a list of applications here. These vertical lines here, sorry, my pointer isn't really working, but these vertical lines here are essentially the applications that you as a developer could provide. And we provide a number of them ourselves from within Netgear. We've already worked with several partners to provide other ones as well. So we provide APIs as well as access to the hardware, and you can notice that these actually have different levels of access to the devices as well. So you can actually just go directly to our XML API, or you could go directly down into the Java virtual machine and access that and write an application in Java. Or you can even write a native C++ application and get access to the operating system directly. All this, of course, is backed by our internal security layer, so you have to make sure that you have access to the data that you are requesting. Another way to look at our architecture is essentially we have a router built into, a software router built into our devices. And this allows these XML messages to be sent around between the devices or between the applications. So for example, you might have a third-party application here that wants to talk with our ReadyShare cloud application. It would just make an XML request out to the control point, which would forward that message to the right third-party bundle and return the messages back. It's all asynchronous based on XML. And provides access not just to these applications within the home, but also through our cloud server to other user interfaces and other applications in the cloud as well. So whether you've created a server on the other side that contains all of your data and you want to interact with that, or whether you want to interact locally with other devices within the home. We provide the simple same API, so it's transparent to you as an application developer where that other server is located. FCML is our communication language. We've seen a lot of people come through here talking about JSON and things like that. We've worked with this language, which is actually coming from Motorola Mobility, but it's actually able to extend the functionality and capabilities of the application and the framework in a very simple and reliable manner. It's also usable in terms of you can actually look at the XML and understand what it's doing just as a person. You don't have to have a parser to really understand what's going on. It's extremely lightweight, very small, and very easy to route around. But most importantly, it's expandable. It allows you to create new object types and new functionality and method calls basically dynamically without needing to change anything in the infrastructure itself. And it's really for command and control. If you want to send content around, you would basically set up the connections through this FCML language and then use the content directly through whatever protocol you would normally use. For example, you might set up a search to look for DLNA content, and then you actually use DLNA to actually stream the media around inside the home. Here's a quick example of what FCML actually looks like. It's just a small XML snippet, and essentially it has a wrapper that tells the router where to send the messages. You can send it to any component within the system, and that includes both local and remote, as I mentioned before. So essentially what this snippet is doing is taking a message from this component, the user interface, on the control point, and sending it to the Zigbee driver on the control point. And what it's basically doing is telling it to set the state of this light to on and set the brightness to 80. So you can see just reading this is actually very straightforward to understand how to implement something using FCML. Here's another example. I'll go ahead and go through this real quick, but it's really just a very straightforward example that looks just like the one I just showed. And it's basically the ability to actually create combinations of these FCML and mix them together in more complex interactions. What's really interesting about this is it's all asynchronous and event-based, so you can send out a request for information, and when that the response comes back, you'll be notified about that. You can set up subscriptions to certain types of data. So if you're interested in the state of that light, you can say, tell me anytime the state of this light changes. Or tell me when any of the state of this media file changes. And as soon as that happens, you'll be notified via an FCML message. The good news, however, is you don't have to worry about FCML. We've built out JavaScript APIs, Java APIs, and other sets of APIs so that you can really just use standard programming language to actually interact with this. However, we want to expose the FCML interface as well, so if you want some technology that we haven't covered, let's say you want to write a Flash application. We don't have an SDK for Flash, but you can use our existing FCML to actually interact with the ecosystem through that manner. So there's all different levels of communications. And essentially, if you look at our SDK, it's based on a technology called OSGI, which is becoming more and more of a standard for deployment of applications within the service provider space. And since Netgear obviously works with a lot of service providers, you know, the Comcast and AT&T type companies of the world, we want to meet their standards. We include tutorials for how to package all this in our SDK documentation. So it's very straightforward to get you started using this, everything from a hello world all up to very complex examples. We provide Java APIs for building these OSGI applications as well. So again, you don't need to know FCML necessarily to actually interact with the system. You just need to know how to program in Java. Our cloud server actually provides all the app store itself, and as well as the repository for your user interfaces and web-based applications. We also, of course, provide account management, transactions, and that sort of thing. So you can make in-app purchases, you can make purchases of applications, you can do subscription services and that sort of thing as well. On the user interface side, we provide JavaScript APIs for web browser-based applications to fit within our framework and within our dashboard. And we also have widget and full screen views. So you can create a small widget that you can stick on a dashboard, or you can create a full screen view of your application. And basically the way that looks and the way that interacts with the system is totally up to the developer. And we also provide a Google Web Toolkit interface for creating the packaging of the applications, as well as complete tutorials. We are providing early access to our, essentially a beta program at this point for developers. This is available. Go to this website and you can actually subscribe submit your information, what types of apps you might be interested in, your company, and that sort of thing. This is very similar to what our previous presenters were talking about. This is a limited number of application developers initially, and as we build out a couple of marquee partners and applications, we'll open it up to the rest of the world in the second half of the year. So, any questions for me? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, and also, if anybody is interested, we have a suite at the Marriott. You can come up and see our demonstration of the dashboard and the ecosystem that we have built up already.